I know that we can.
I know darn well we can work it out. Oh, yes, we can. I know we can. Yes, we can. And why can't we if we want to? Yes, we can.
I know we can make it work.
Welcome to Yes We Can. I'm Pastor Sherman, D.Manning. Forgive the noise, background noise. As you can see, I'm outside. You're going to be joining my interview with attorney Doug Shaffer, one of the best, most well-known, preeminent personal injury trial lawyers in the country. Part 2 of my fascinating interview with him is coming up after this. But I wanted to say this to you. One of the questions I asked Doug, because he's won over $100 million in settlements for his clients. I asked him in the interview, how do you ask people for money? Because I don't like asking for money. Lots of preachers don't have a problem with it. They might take up 10 offerings in a service. I don't like doing that. My service, by the way, shameless plug, Friday night, 7 o'clock p.m., 10306 Avalon, Yes We Can Worship Center has a powerful 1-hour service every Friday night. At that service, we take up 1 offering. If I'm gonna keep these positive, fascinating interviews coming into your home, into your automobile, on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, iHeart has picked us up. If I'm going to keep these podcasts coming to you, I'm going to need money. I need you to help us to advertise the great work that we're doing at Yes We Can Worship Center. When you send a tax-deductible donation to our organization, you help us feed the hungry, house the homeless, and produce our podcast. And everybody's talking about this podcast. It's number 1. We've got the best producers, we've got the best interviews. Some of the top preeminent super lawyers in this country have already been on my show. And my aim is to bring you positive interactions, interviews with great people every day, any day. I want you to be able to tune in and hear people who don't always agree with each other. I interview Republicans as well as Democrats and independents. And I do not always agree with the people on my show. And they certainly don't always agree with me. But we're able to sit down together and have reasonable, rational conversations, polite discussions, iron sharpening iron. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to this wonderful podcast. If you can help us, go to yeswecanworshipcenter.org. Yeswecanworshipcenter.org. Send your tax-deductible donation. Some of you watching, some of you great, powerful lawyers, businessmen, entrepreneurs can send $10,000, $15,000, $5,000, whatever it is. No donation is too large or small. Now, let's get back to the studio with attorney Doug Shaffer. Thank you for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. Pastor Sherman D. Manning. You're watching Yes We Can podcast. Many of you have sent me text messages, emails. Some of you would like to sponsor the show. We're very, very selective about who we allow to sponsor these shows because we've got great people like attorney Frank Gooch, who is a sponsor watching. We've got attorney John Eisen, who is a sponsor watching. Go to our website if you'd like to donate to the work that we're doing. YesWeCanWorshipCenter.org. Your tax-deductible donation will do 3 things. Number 1, it will continue to promote and publicize this podcast and help it to be viewed around the world. Number 2, you will help us to house the homeless. Number 3, you will help us to feed the hungry. YesWeCanWorshipCenter.org. We do need your support. I am in the middle of a fascinating interview with a great personal injury trial lawyer, a great man, a fabulous human being. And I want to pick up where we left off. Attorney Doug Shaffer, you said that you were struggling with the choice about what to do. So please proceed.
Sure. So, Pastor, I'm trying to figure out what to do. I'm a couple of weeks from graduating. So I walk into a career planning office there at Ohio State, and I walk up, and there was a young man sitting in a chair at a small table, and next to him was the career planning officer that was running the office. And I walked up to the gentleman that was running the office, and I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about going to graduate school." And he says to me, "Really?" I said, "What are you thinking about?" And the only thing I could think about at that moment was an MBA. And I said, well, I'm thinking about getting an MBA. And he says, well, have you had the core courses? And I said, well, what's that? And he says, econ, microeconomics, macroeconomics, business administration. And he probably lists another 5 or 6. And I'm kind of sitting back like the wind is blowing on me, thinking, oh my God. And I said, no, I don't have any of those. And he says, well, they'll take you about 2 years to get through. And the young man sitting next to him, who just blurts out of nowhere, hey, have you ever thought about law school? And the career planning officer says, he's right. Any degree would do for law school. And I said, really? And he said, yes. And he said, in fact, it was a Thursday. He said, we're giving you LSAT right here on campus on Saturday, in fact. And I said, well, I guess I'm taking it. And I later learned that was unheard of. People don't walk in and take the LSAT on one day's notice. I had no idea people study for 3, 6, 9 months for something like this. You don't walk in and take this on, on short notice like I did.
Right.
But I did all right. Somewhere around 75 percentile. I think I could do a lot better. But considering it was pretty good.
Right.
And then I dug in and I started getting together law school applications and getting excited about the idea.
And at that time, did you have any idea what type of attorney you wanted to be? Prosecutor, defense attorney, criminal lawyer, civil? When did that come about?
That's an interesting. I didn't, and when I got to law school, I really applied myself, even though it's kind of reaching back to our earlier story. My youngest brother at that point comes to live with me, and I'm a first-year law student. And we shared a little room above a garage in Calabasas, California. I know that for about $230 a month, and him and my younger brother shared that room.
Wow.
And that's how I started law school. And I really dug in, ironically, thank goodness, to a midterm that I just, your first semester of law school, they don't count they give these midterms so you get an idea what a final exam is like. In law school, your whole grade in almost every course is 1 3-hour exam at the end. That's it. That's it. 15 weeks, walk in, take a 3-hour exam, and that's your final grade. So they try to warm you up for what that's going to be like, and they give these midterms that don't count. And I did. I'd moved to California. I'd met a wonderful young lady that was an undergraduate, and just so wonderful. And she wasn't in law school, let's say. And she started showing me around Southern California weekends. I'd go to law school during the week, and I'd do enough work to learn. And otherwise, I'm starting to go up to Santa Barbara and San Diego and San Luis Obispo and Disneyland, and I take my first.
You're falling in love with California.
I am.
Okay.
I am.
Absolutely.
And I take my first couple midterms, and I do okay. I get a C on one and a B on another. And I'll never forget this day. And this law school professor says he tells this story to every single class he has. Because I graduated, like you said, magna cum laude. I was number 3 out of 250 students in my law school.
Wow.
And in law school, that makes you, particularly in a small school, a little bit of a celebrity.
Celebrity, absolutely.
Yeah, it does, of sorts. Everyone kind of knows who the people at that level are.
Right.
But that wasn't going to be my fate unless this one criminal law exam came along. Took the exam. And I thought he did okay. And about a week later, the professor is up and he's got the exams. And by those days, they didn't have the internet. You wrote blue books by your social security number. That's how they didn't have your name. You were just your social security number on a blue book.
Mm-hmm.
And the professor has got this list on the board. He's got 3 A's and maybe 20 B's and 40 C's and 15 D's, and then he's got this special category that he calls a D double minus. And there's 3 people up there. and I remember thinking to myself, well, those people are done. I mean,
Okay.
Those 3 people are finished. Whoever they are, we know they won't be here next year.
And this is an eventual magna cum laude thinking this way. Am I correct?
That's right.
Okay.
And so I walked down and I started digging through this big pile of papers, trying to find my blue book with my social security number on it.
Mm-hmm.
And Lord have mercy.
Mm.
Guess who one of the 3 D double minuses are? Yes, indeed.
Wow.
There's one of them.
Okay.
And I looked at it and I quickly rolled it up and I got out of there and really was in a state of shock and dismay, and took a little time to regroup.
Well, stay there for a moment. Unpack that for me. As smart as you are, what do you think happened there? What do you think happened?
Well, I know what happened, and this is what I went up to the professor afterwards with this exam, and I said, Professor, tell me what I did wrong. And he reads the exam and he says to me, and I'll never forget, he says, Doug, it's really simple. You don't know the law. It's that simple. And I walked out of there. I'm going to tell you, I had 5 weeks to go between final exams, and it woke me up. It woke me up because no more trips to San Diego or Disneyland or San Francisco or those places. I dug in, and part of it was fear. Because I realized this could go wrong if I continued the way I did, and I dug in those last 5 weeks, and I still didn't know how I did until in the old days they used to post all of the grades simultaneously in law school on a board, and the board's still there at Pepperdine. I tell my sons about it, take them up to see it, but that's not how they give you your grades anymore. But they would all simultaneously come out on a long piece of paper by your social security number, and they didn't give the first year's grades until all of them were complete for every class and every section. And I was down, I had a little job making some extra money in the cafeteria, and somebody said law school grades are up, and I came barreling up in my old VW Bug to the top of that hill. And my life changed at that moment because, to my surprise, there I was. I was on a number of the classes, the highest grade in the class. It was clear I had potential. This was something I could really succeed at.
Right.
And it was a day that changed my life.
How did that make you feel?
Well, I felt proud, and I felt, I really realized, hey, this is something I need to take seriously. Like, this is life changing. I seem to have a knack for this, and so it was.
And so you were accepted to the bar, and was it 84, 85?
That's right.
Okay, all right. I'm pretty good with my homework here. Okay, so your first year practicing law, what did you do?
Here's an interesting thing, and I had a son that started law school, and I think he's probably smarter than me, to tell you the truth. He's one of those brilliant kids I know. But he didn't have a knack for taking law school exams for some reason, and I tried to inspire him and tell him, look, here's the reality, that I graduated near the top of my class in law school, and I got this super prestigious job coming out of law school at then it was the oldest firm in California, Lewis, Florida, Hamilton, and Scripps.
Uh-huh.
And later I got a job with this firm, Melvin and Myers.
Ah, I'm very familiar. I've had a couple of their lawyers on my show already, believe it or not. So the first couple of years, you were practicing what kind of law at these prestigious firms?
Well, these firms are corporate law firms. They have
Okay.
mostly corporate clients.
Uh-huh.
And I'm doing a lot of business, business litigation primarily.
Uh-huh.
I feel fortunate about being there. There were a lot of smart people there. There are a lot of friends I still have in my life from there.
Mm-hmm.
But I was 6 years out. I was bored. I was bored, and I went into this associate review.
Mm-hmm.
And this was another moment, Pastor, where you realize your life is going to change. So I go into this associate review there at Melvin and Myers. I mean, as you know, one of the most prestigious firms in the world.
Right.
Warren Christopher, the Secretary of State, was the chairman at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in for my associate review, and I'm just wondering, like, my goodness, it's this corporate litigation and reviewing documents all day and discovery responses, and I'm just wondering, how I'm going to do this for the rest of my life at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a senior partner doing my review. Very nice man. I won't mention his name, but very, very nice man.
Mm-hmm.
And partner for a long time. And he was trying to give me some constructive criticism. And he says, Doug, he said, you're very talented. We really like you a lot. And but one of the things you got to do is you got to pay more attention to detail.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I know it's hard because so much of what we do is so boring. And I remember thinking to myself, Pastor, wait a minute. I can't do boring until I'm your age. Like, that's just not going to work.
Right.
Like,
No. You and I are alike in that manner. I mean, one thing about the work that I do, there is never a dull moment. And I'm the kind of guy, I bore easily. And if I'm going to be bored, I'm not going to be effective. So you said I can't do this for 50 years.
I can't.
Okay.
No way. No way. And so I started thinking about what I could do. And there was a prominent personal injury lawyer called Sanford Gage, who was one of the most prominent personal injury lawyers in California at the time. Actually founded what's now the Consumer Attorneys of California.
Repeat the name again, please.
Sanford Gage.
Okay, G-A-G-E?
G-A-G-E.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And there was an ad in the Daily Journal, the legal newspaper,
Okay.
about an opening.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, well, being a trial lawyer, I actually had explored it. I thought maybe that's something that could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I had actually went to the chairman of Melvin, the litigation department, a very famous lawyer named Bill Vaughn,
Mm-hmm.
who defended, I think, the Westmoreland case.
Bill who?
Bill Vaughn.
Oh, okay. I thought you said Bill Barr. Okay. All right.
No.
Okay.
He's a giant in the legal history.
Mm-hmm.
He defended one of the CBS in one of the most prominent cases in the 60s,
Uh-huh.
involving the First Amendment. And he was a chairman, a very nice man.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to Bill and I said, hey, there's this, the city attorney has this project called the Trial Attorney Project.
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll go to 2 nights a week for 4 hours and all day Saturday for 6 weeks, they'll train you in this trial project to try misdemeanor criminal cases.
Okay.
And it might have been a recruiting tool, maybe to also get people that, maybe see the light and come into that as a career.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the chairman and I said, I think I'd like to do this. I think I'd like to try it.
Okay.
And the chairman of the Melvin, the head of litigation, said, well, Doug, he said, that's a great program, but we don't really need you to do that. We don't really need that for where you're at here. And I said, well, okay. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll just do it on my own time then. And I'll do the trials on my vacation time.
Okay.
And he said, your vacation time is your vacation time if that's how you want to spend it.
Okay.
And that's what I went and did. I went and took this trial attorney project for 6 weeks, and they deputized me. And I tried to inspire my son. That I told him, and I still say it to this day, I think the most fun I ever had in law was going into those mornings at the city attorney's office and walking in, excited to be there, and they just hand you a file and they say, hey, Shaffer, get up to Department 52. Here's the file. The officer's been subpoenaed. You got an hour to read the file, and then you're going to be picking a jury. And that's how it went down.
That's spur of the moment. Is your son an attorney, by the way?
No, he's halfway through, and he's kind of struggling with that decision on what to go. And I'm trying to inspire him to finish.
Okay, he'll do the right thing. He'll do the right thing. Remember the last time you were struggling with that kind of decision, what ended up happening for you. But I'm going to run out of time, and I could talk to you all day long. It's nice talking with you. I just like talking to you. But I have to get to the personal injury law that you practice now. Tell me about one of your huge cases. I mean, Mr. Shaffer, how do you win $100 million? I don't get that.
Well, first of all, a lot of hard work, and not all these cases are easy. A lot of hard work. Law is strategic. There's a lot of chess involved, a lot of moving parts. So thinking ahead, playing chess, anticipating moves the defense will make, putting your case in a position to have the best outcome. And I'll tell you, for example, a case I think a lot of people will enjoy hearing about is a case I had involving a professional hockey player at an LA Kings game. And I'll tell you how a case that on its initial impression looks like it cannot succeed. But through perseverance, hard work, a little bit of luck, the harder you work, the luckier you get, of course. I got an enormous settlement at this case. And let me tell you the facts of the case. So a young man, I go by his first name, Jonathan, brilliant young man in his mid-20s, graduated from UCSD in 2.5 years, was running the information department at a Fortune 500 company in technology as the internet was beginning there in the 90s. Is at an LA Kings game. And Luc Robitaille, I think he's in the Hall of Fame now. He's got a bunch of Kings records. Had just scored his second goal against the Sharks in a matter of a minute. And this was a really crucial late season game, battling to make the playoffs. And a player named Joe Murphy, who incidentally was the first American drafted #1 in the amateur draft in the NHL. At one time, obviously a very talented guy, but he's kind of on the tail end of his career. And he had I didn't know it at the time, but he had a little reputation for being rough around the edges, and we later found out he had some big suspensions. But again, we didn't know that at the time, and the internet wasn't around then. We couldn't find this information, wasn't so easily available as it is now. You couldn't Google Joe Murphy and find out all this background information.
Right.
So Murphy skates in as the puck bounces out of the net. As Robitaille scores, the puck bounces out. The TV has got the puck going in, and it's got this shark that appears to be Murphy's number skating towards the puck, raising up his stick, and then it cuts away to the Kings celebrating. And what happens next, according to my client when he comes in my office, is that a puck comes hurtling into the stands and slams into his head at incredible speeds. And these pucks are kept in solid ice before they get on the ice. They're like pieces of rocks when they're on the ice.
Right.
It slams into his head, it clears center ice, and knocks him, really a serious concussion. Let's put it that way. He's seriously concussed.
Right.
And leaves and begins to have treatment, and he's unable to drive a car for about 6 weeks, and he has a real serious head injury. And he comes into my office, and we're talking. And if you met Jonathan, he impressed you as a really brilliant guy. It's hard to imagine that he had a mild traumatic brain injury. I mean, he's a very impressive guy, very articulate. And he's telling me things he's going through, and you hear it, but you can't see it. And I'm talking with him. I said, gee, Jonathan, do we have any witnesses? He says, well, I was there with my friend. I said, well, we need to prove this happened while play was stopped. Because if that puck comes into the stands while play is going on, I don't think we have much of a case. That's going to be assumption of the risk. That's a risk you take when you go to a hockey game. And he says, just my friend that was with me. And I said, well, your friend is helpful. I said, but he's going to be viewed as biased. Do we have anybody else that you can know of? And he said, no. And I said, aren't you in technology and things like that? I said, why don't you go on the King's website and post about this incident and see if anything comes back? Does anybody see it? And so he does, and he gets about 20 or 30 responses, and most of them are, hey, that Joe Murphy's a jerk, or, I can't believe this happened. 29 of the 30 are absolutely meaningless. And one of them, so it turned out this fan, this young lady that just loved hockey, she had season tickets. She went to every game, and she emails back, and of course it's anonymous at that point because it's in a chat room, and she says, I actually was sitting behind you when this happened.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't see who hit it, but I remember that puck coming into the stands and hitting you right after the goal. And I said, my God, this is incredible.
Wow. If I may, because I'm running out of time, I got to get to the climax. You took the case. You won the case. How much did you win?
$3 million in 1996. So that's probably about $10 million today.
Okay. And what's the largest settlement you've gotten in one case?
Largest settlement I've gotten in one case was a case I worked on for the late Mike Hughes, one of the greatest trial lawyers of all time. $27 million was the largest we ever got in a paraplegic car accident.
Oh, wow. Wow. Now, a question I wanted to ask you, amazing, by the way, and I wish I had more time. A question I want to ask you is, when you're arguing a case before a jury, you have to at some point ask for money. And I will admit that I have a personal interest in this also, and I'll tell you why in a moment. How do you ask people for money? Because I will, listen to me, Attorney Shaffer, this new podcast is going well. Everybody compliments on this is the new democracy now, but you have to have money to keep it going. My problem is, how do you ask people for money? Even as a pastor, that's one of the things I do not like about my job is when you have to raise an offering. I don't like asking for money. So how did you teach yourself how to ask juries to give this money to Mike because of the injury? How do you do that?
Well, first you need to convince the jury that this person in this incident is credible, that they deserve it. You've got to first, by the case you put on, persuasively convince them that this person deserves it, and the person that caused this accident is responsible. And so that's part of your case that you have to put on. And then the way you do it, there's a number of approaches that you take. Okay. And it all depends on the circumstances and the jury and the people. And I'll just give you a couple examples. Okay. One of them that is legendary is the per diem argument. Okay. That's a very persuasive one in the right case. But let's say, for example, someone's lost a limb or been paralyzed, and they've got 40 years to live. And you you say to the jury, this is what they have to go through every day, all day. They don't get any breaks. 16 hours a day, all day long. This is what they live with. So let's imagine that there's a job out there, and here's a description. You're going to be sitting all day, and you're going to be in a wheelchair, and you're going to have to depend on other people to help you, and you're not allowed to care for yourself, and you can't use the restroom on your own. And this is the job duties that you have to do every day, all day. That's the job, and they're going to pay you $20 an hour to do this job. And you start doing the math. You start taking $20 an hour, and you start multiplying that over 16 hours a day, and you start multiplying that times 365 days times 40 years, and the numbers can get enormous in the right case.
And so this is called the per diem argument?
That's called the per diem argument.
Okay, wow,
that's
fascinating.
That's right.
Fascinating. I've got to shoot this one in. Have you heard of attorney Willie Gary?
I have heard of him. I know he's very, very, very talented attorney. I haven't come across him professionally, but you hear other attorneys that are talented and successful in all of the fields of law, and I've definitely heard of him. Of course, I know Frank Gooch.
We got to get to Frank. We can't leave without talking about Frank. Frank recommended you for the show, and he's never led me down the wrong path. How did you meet attorney Frank Gooch?
Well, I feel like the more we talk, I feel like there's a divine guidance every time I turn around.
Wow.
I had rented an office space there at 100 Wilshire. Young man had rented it. This is when I started my own law practice. I'd been out now 10 years, and I felt like I was ready. And it was great. I loved it. I had an office on the ocean, view I dreamed of. But the young fellow that rented the office wasn't nervous about committing to a long-term lease. And when that lease was up, I was a subtenant. You're going to raise the rates astronomically. And so he announced to everyone's dismay that he wasn't going to renew the lease. And so I started walking around. I thought, well, okay, I'll just kind of, same way I found this office, I'll maybe walk to some offices in the neighborhood. I walked to 1299 Wilshire, and I went to the office of the building, and I said, hey, is anybody renting space as a subtenant? And they said, actually, we think they are. This law firm called Gilchrist and Rudder up on the 9th floor. And I said, well, okay, I'll go up and check it out. And I was coming from an office that was very casual. I think I had a pair of jeans and T-shirt on that day. And I walked into this law firm that was very, very wonderful people, but it was, a business firm. And so they didn't dress that way, let's say.
Okay.
And I walked to the receptionist and I said, hey, I hear you have some space available. And she called the gentleman named Paul Rudder. I love Paul. I'm so grateful to have known him. And so it was Gilchrist and Rudder. And Paul comes out, and he gets the call that there's someone looking for space. And he walks out, and he sees this guy in a jeans and T-shirt. And he motions me to come into his office, walk into his office, and he shuts the door. And I've laughed with him many times about it. The first thing that Mr. Rudder ever says to me is, I don't think you'll be happy here. We have a dress code.
Okay.
And I said, well, Paul, I said, I came from a Melbourne. I don't mind putting on, a suit and tie if needed. I'm very interested. It's like a beautiful space. And talk a little bit. And I convinced him to rent me an office. And I was there 22 years for a place that Paul had said, we don't think you'll be happy here. And that's where I met Frank Gooch, is through that serendipity. That's where I met Frank. It's there.
And what a great man Frank is. And Frank, I just want to give you a shout out. Frank is one of the few people who has been on the show, who not only has been on the show, but has given me other show ideas. And very importantly, of note, Frank sent a sizable contribution, financial contribution to Yes We Can Worship Center to help us do the work that we're doing. And we thank you for that, Frank, and we hope that others will be led to do what you did. Mr. Shaffer, this has been very interesting, and I promise you I'll have you back again. We didn't get through half the topics I wanted to get through, but I will tell you that even going through the difficult childhood that you did, I believe that you've turned out to be a great man, and I know that even though she had mental problems and mental issues and things of that nature, that if she were in her right mind, Ruth and Harold would be very proud of the man that you have become. I've got 90 seconds left. Any last words you'd like to say before I get you back again?
No, just thank you for having me on here and letting me share my story. I'm excited to come back, and any questions you've got, I'm happy to come back. It's been a pleasure, and just thank you.
Okay, thank you very kindly. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching a super lawyer, voted best attorney a few years on. His name is Attorney Doug Shaffer. Google him if you haven't found out everything you want to know from this particular show today. He's just a great man, and I want to thank God for you allowing me to come into your homes, to come into your automobiles. Remember that we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Music, we're on iHeart. Remember to tell your friends about this brand new podcast. If you'd like to be a part of this podcast, go to yeswecanworshipcenter.org and you can donate. Remember that any situation can get better. Remember to never give up. You can make a difference in your community. We can do it together, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we can.